Kamala Harris has expanded her national lead over Donald Trump to 4 percentage points. That's her highest mark since Decision Desk HQ and The Hill began tracking these polls in January of 2023. 49.4% to 45.4%. Should Harris end up winning the national popular votes by exactly 4 points in November, that would mark a half-point decrease for Democrats since Joe Biden won by 4.5% in 2020. And considering that Biden just narrowly held off Trump in that election by 0.3% in Arizona, 0.2% in Georgia, and 0.6% in Wisconsin, it's unclear whether Harris would actually win the Electoral College even with a 4-point lead. So as always, the key question remains, how are Trump and Harris performing against one another in the key battleground states? On your screen right now is the 2024 Electoral College map, with 8 states left blank in gray. These are the key battlegrounds where there have been enough polls released between Harris and Trump for Decision Desk HQ to have created an average. The rest of the states are already filled in with my own prediction ratings, which you can hear more about in my previous video that will pop up in the top right-hand corner right now. As you can see here in the electoral vote counter, former President Donald Trump holds an initial advantage with 219 electoral votes, narrowly leading Vice President Harris with 213. 106 electoral votes remain, meanwhile, in the gray states. Let's get started, though, with the latest averages in the upper Rust Belt core trio of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Now, this trio has decided the last 2 presidential races and is likely to play kingmaker once again, as even if Trump does sweep the Sun Belt battlegrounds of Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, and North Carolina, where he has generally polled better so far this cycle, if Kamala Harris can simply hold on to these 3 states, plus Virginia, she would hit exactly 270. Let's start in Pennsylvania, the keystone state in name and practice. Its 19 electoral votes are the largest prize among the key swing states. Ask any forecaster out there to name the single most important state on the 2024 map, most would say Pennsylvania. That's a big reason why Governor Josh Shapiro was considered the favorite to be Harris's running mate, but nevertheless, she chose Walz, and as per the latest polling average, Kamala holds a slight edge over Trump with a 0.7% lead based on 36 polls. The split is 48.2% to 47.5%. Let's take a look down here at the last few polls added to this average. The Trafalgar Group, a historically right-leaning pollster, had Trump up by 2 points, while Wick/Two-Way, Emerson College, and SoCal Research each show a tied race. Morning Consult and Bloomberg News, though, have Harris up by 4 percentage points here. Now, scrolling back up to the timeline graph, you see that Harris has maintained an extremely tight lead over Trump for almost a month now, going all the way back to August 7th. That was 2 weeks before Biden dropped out. But going back to our map, this narrow lead for Harris translates over to a tilt blue rating, adding 19 crucial electoral votes to the VP's tally. Let's head on over to Michigan now, 15 electoral votes, another relatively large chunk of change here. It has voted to the left of both Pennsylvania and Wisconsin over the last few cycles. While Trump carried it by only 0.2% in 2016, he won Wisconsin and Pennsylvania both by 0.7%. And then when Joe Biden flipped the trio back into the Democratic column in 2020, he won Michigan by almost 3 points, Pennsylvania by a little over a point, and Wisconsin by less than a point, 0.6%. Now, since 2020, Democrats have also performed extremely well in down-ballot statewide contests, most notably Governor Gretchen Whitmer's 11-point re-election in 2022. Now here in 2024, the polls show Harris leading Trump by roughly 1.5 points, 1.6% based on 23 polls, with 48.2% to 46.6%. Again, if we take a look at the last few polls here, you see Trafalgar having Trump up by 0.4 over Harris, while Emerson College, ActiVote, and Morning Consult each show her leading, ranging from 0 to 4 points. And so again, going back to our map, Michigan receives another tilt Democrat rating. This is a must-win for Harris. There is just no viable path to 270 for her without Michigan, as it will probably vote to the left of every other battleground in this video, apart from Virginia. Finally, the state of Wisconsin, on the other hand, is generally considered the most Republican-friendly of this Upper Rust Belt trio, both fundamentally and demographically, as it's whiter, more religious, and has a lower share of college-educated voters. Yet here in 2024, against Biden and now Harris, we have seen Trump consistently pull the worst out of the three. Harris's lead currently sits at just over 3 points, 3.4% based on 25 polls, with 49.5% to 46.1%. This is a slight dip from last week when she led by a full 4%. Though it is still a notably wide margin, considering that Wisconsin has been decided by less than a point in 4 of the last 6 cycles, including both 2016 and 2020. Though keep in mind there that Trump outperformed the polls by a greater margin here in Wisconsin than in any other state in both of those elections. While Hillary Clinton led by almost 6 points in 2016, she lost by 0.8%, and then Biden led by more than 8 points in 2020, yet only won by 0.6%. Yet as this video is based solely on the latest polling average margin, we're going to place Wisconsin in the lean blue column for Harris on our map, completing the sweep of the Upper Rust Belt that would secure her the necessary 270 electoral votes, again, should she hold Virginia in the Democratic corner. Now, if you do want to see what the 2024 map would look like if we applied past polling bias or error to every single state's latest polling average, you can check out the video in the top right-hand corner. Let's head on down to the Sunbelt states now, though: Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, and North Carolina. Now, in terms of how the candidates themselves appeal to these two distinct geographical regions, while Vice President Harris is generally thought of as weaker up here in the Rust Belt, she is comparatively expected to overperform in the Sun Belt. We have already seen Harris consolidate a lot of the minority support that Biden had lost in the crosstab polling aggregators here among both Black and Hispanic voters, which is key, of course, in the rapidly diversifying and left-trending Sun Belt region. But Harris will probably struggle to match Biden's unusually strong backing from older, working-class white voters, which of course is key in the Rust Belt states. Before we do take a look, though, at the latest polls in the Sun Belt, please take a second to consider subscribing to my channel down below. It's completely free and it does help me out tremendously. According to my channel analytics, more than 80% of my viewers are not subscribed. We have gotten that down from 90%, but again, let's try and get to 50-50 by election day. To the Sun Belt we go now, starting in Nevada. There have been numerous positive indicators for Republicans here over the last few cycles, even as Democrats have dominated statewide elections over the last 2 decades. Nevada has shifted 5 points in favor of Republicans relative to the nation since Barack Obama carried the state by 7 points in 2012, as Joe Biden carried it by 2.4% in 2020 despite winning the national popular vote by a similar margin to Obama. The GOP also won a closely contested race for governor in 2022, flipping it from blue to red, and received more U.S. House votes than Democrats in those midterms for the first time in decades. Now, the latest average via DDHQ in the Hill has Harris now in the lead over Trump by a little over half a percentage point, 0.6% based on 15 polls. Harris is averaging 48.3% compared to Trump's 47.7%. It is the first lead that Harris has held in this average, and the first time that Trump does not lead in Nevada since October of 2023, as Joe Biden consistently trailed by around 3 to 6 points for much of the last year. Going back to the Harris average, though, you do see 3 of the last 4 polls show the vice president in front, ranging from D+1 to D+4, with the most recent Insider Advantage survey having Trump up by a point. Back on our map, though, we have yet another tilt blue rating here to assign in Nevada, adding 6 more electoral votes to the Harris tally as she inches closer and closer to 270 with 263 now. Let's go to Arizona. Democrats broke through in 2020 with their first win since 1996, as Joe Biden's 0.3% victory margin was the second closest in that election. He also became the first Democrat to carry Maricopa County here, encompassing the Phoenix metropolitan area, in over 70 years. Now, Maricopa always holds the key to winning elections in Arizona, and it has trended to the left over the last decade due to rapid population growth and diversification. Now, here in 2024, we had seen Trump consistently pull ahead of Biden. He led by almost 6 points at the time of the president's withdrawal. Yet once again, we see Harris not only diminishing that advantage, but fully flipping the average in her favor. She leads Trump by 0.1%, just a tenth of a percentage point here based on 23 polls. 48% to 47.9%, the lead does continue to flip back and forth here over the last week or two, with neither candidate building a lead of more than just a couple tenths. So going back to our map, I'm going to place Arizona down as a toss-up state, considering that while the purpose of a polling average is to lower the margin of error of any one poll, this margin, 0.1%, is still effectively a tie in all effects and purposes, and this could once again flip to being a tenth of a point in favor of Trump on any given day. Going back to our map, though, and shifting over to the southeast region here in Georgia, the closest state in 2020 at Biden plus 0.2, it's another formerly reliably Republican state. Biden was the first Democrat to carry Georgia since Bill Clinton in 1992, as the Atlanta metro area, much like Phoenix and Arizona, has rapidly diversified, and a turnout boom among black voters in that election pushed Democrats over the top. As I had mentioned previously, though, the polls here in 2024 did show Biden losing ground among black voters against Trump, and so the hope for Democrats now is that Harris can put a stop to that bleeding, and perhaps even improve their margin among black voters in an effort to keep Georgia blue this November. And in fact, the latest average via DDHQ has Harris leading Trump by 0.4%, based on 20 polls, 49.2% to 48.8%, yet another average that has just recently flipped in favor of Harris, with 3 of the last 4 polls showing her in front. An insider advantage having the candidates tied. Now, Trump had previously led in 3 of the last 4 polls before this run, and again, like in Arizona, it could very well flip back in his favor any day now with just one single poll. And so given that a 0.4% lead is still effectively nothing, we're also going to place Georgia down as a toss-up here. Now, for rating classifications in my videos for full transparency, I always place anything below half a percentage point as a toss-up, while 0.5 to 3 points is tilt, 3 to 7 lean, 7 to 10 likely, and then anything greater than 10 solid. Heading up the East Coast now, though, to our penultimate state, North Carolina. The GOP has won 8 straight federal elections for president and U.S. Senate here, each by less than 6 percentage points, defining the state as a purple-ish, yet still reliably Republican-leaning state. Most recently, Trump carried North Carolina by just a point in 2020, after carrying it in 2016 by almost 4 points. Now back here in 2024, it is a must-win for Trump, just like Michigan for Harris. It's actually the only state on the map that could realistically flip to Harris this November, and thereby the only bit of defending that Trump actually needs to do on this map. He'll be on attack everywhere else. That being said, the latest poll average has Trump and Harris in an exact tie here based on 17 polls at 48.3% each. Neither candidate has led the other by more than a point since late July, and so going back to our map now, North Carolina will of course be placed in the pure toss-up category, meaning that the race to 270 all comes back to whether Harris can hold Virginia's 13 electoral votes in her column. A reliably Democratic-leaning state over the last decade, Biden won it by 10 points in 2020, but polls this cycle have shown a more competitive race than expected, with Trump even leading Biden in several surveys here before he dropped out. Now with Harris in the race, she does lead Trump by 3% on average based on 7 polls, 47.8% to 44.8%. It's a smaller sample size than in previous states here, and definitely an underperformance for Harris relative to previous Democratic margins in the Commonwealth. But regardless, it will go down as lean blue on our map, officially raising the vice president's tally to 276. This is, of course, an extreme shift to the left since even just 2 weeks ago, where Trump led in each of the toss-ups plus Nevada. It is always interesting to see how these polls, though, compare to betting market odds. And Bet Online is unique in that they do have markets for swing state parlays. So, for example, the odds that Democrats or Republicans sweep the blue wall states of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Currently, neither party is favored to accomplish this feat, though Democrats have better odds at plus 150 to Republicans plus 300, which does match up with the latest polling averages here on our map. As for the individual swing state markets themselves, they have Republicans favored in each of the states currently marked down as toss-ups based on the latest polling averages. Here, of course, you see Republicans minus 120 in Arizona, then minus 165 in Georgia, and finally in North Carolina, minus 170. They do, though, agree that Democrats are favored in Michigan at minus 180, and then in Pennsylvania at minus 115. And finally, Wisconsin all the way down here at minus 150. Going back to our map, though, you do see that if Trump does manage to tilt each of the toss-ups in his favor, his electoral count would climb all the way back up to 262, so just 8 electoral votes shy of that magic number. Goes to show this race is still extremely close and will likely be decided by the narrowest of margins. That does it, though, for today's video. Shout out to my channel members on screen here. Thank you so much for your support. If you'd like to become a member, go ahead and click the join button below this video to receive exclusive perks. Make sure to also subscribe to my channel down below as well, and please leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it. You can check out more content from my channel here, and as always, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. EP out.